What methods do you suggest for hard starting pens, and what exactly is baby's bottom? Now, I actually ended up covering a lot of this in the earlier question from Kevin, but so what do I suggest for hard starting pens? So this is more kind of a remedy answer. Can anything be done about it? So it's always good to clean the pen first. So that's just a blanket statement. Even if it's a brand new pen, you want to clean your pen because you could have machining oils, or you could have little bits of debris or something like that that are in there from manufacturing process. And that could be from any manufacturer. So it's always a good idea to clean your pen if you're having any type of flow issues. Me personally, I don't always end up sticking to that. I'm usually too excited and I just ink up the pen. And if I don't have any flow issues, great. If I do have any kind of issue whatsoever, I'm like, dang it, I should have cleaned out the pen first. And then I clean it out, and then I write, and 90% of the time that fixes it. So that right there is always a good thing to do. But if you have a pen that you've been using for a while, it always is hard starts. Inspecting the tines is always the next best step. So I have a video on the Goulet Loupe. It's called the Goulet Loupe tutorial, I think it is. So that's always a good one to go and check out, because I show you not only how to use the loop, but what you're actually looking for as far as like nib tine alignment, which often doesn't affect flow as much, but as it does the scratchiness and the feel on the page. But certainly, like the way that the tines are bent can influence the flow. So if you have a hard starting pen, it could either be because, if you're looking at a nib as if it was face on here, right? So like this, you're looking at it like this. If you have nib tines and they are splayed inward like this, like they're pinched, and they're pinched together too closely, they're not like parallel like this, but they're really pinched in. That can give you some dry writing issues, hard starting, things like that, because you're pinching off the channel for the capillary action to really be able to occur. So then it's only when you're writing with more pressure that it kind of flows out a little bit. You can also have the opposite problem of it being splayed outward too much. And if that's, or even if it's like, more parallel, like it's kind of supposed to be, but then you write with heavier pressure, you can end up kind of splaying it out as you're writing, which can cause a break in the capillary action and actually cause it to work in reverse. Because if you got it flowing like this, ink wants to go where it's more constricted, so it's going to flow backwards. So that's going to be really frustrating for you. That can sometimes happen too. So what can anything be done about that? If they're pinched together, it's pretty easy. You just press down. So like I'm turning my nib down like it's on the paper. You just press down with a little bit of writing pressure, and as you're pressing it down, it's going to splay those tines a little bit. Don't overdo it, because you wanted to give just a little bit of pressure to properly kind of spread them back out so they're a little more parallel, or maybe splayed just a little bit inward to assist that capillary action. If it's the opposite problem, if it's splayed outward, that's a little more complicated. The best kind of hack that I have for fixing that is to take the nib like this and to kind of pinch the end of the tines. And as you're pinching it with your fingernails, you twist so that you're actually twisting one of the tines over top of the other. And then you take it the other way and you twist it the other way. So you're actually twisting one tine over top of the other. And you do that several times, and that will eventually kind of like pull the nib tines back a little closer together. Now that said, doing any of this kind of stuff, if you screw it up, you're on your own. Like, it's always best to kind of contact your retailer and see if it's a newer pen. Contact your retailer and see if it's a warranty issue or anything like that you don't do. But if it's, assuming it's an inexpensive pen, it's not worth the hassle for you, or it's a pen that's older and isn't working as properly anymore, this could be the issue. Especially the splayed out one, because if you're writing with a pen for a number of years and you write with a really heavy hand, eventually the tines could kind of spread out. You gotta get them back. So doing that over and over again. Now you're almost always going to end up with, if you're looking at the nib like I'm stabbing you in the eye, if you're looking at it straight on, here's my tip like that, or I'll do it like this. So here's your tip. If you're taking and you're twisting the tines over top of each other like this to get them back closer together, you're never going to end up with, or very rarely would you end up with the nibs perfectly aligned again, because you're twisting them like you're super screwing them up like that. So you're going to twist it over top like that, and you're going to end up with a nib that's like that, and it's going to write really scratchy because you got one of the tines that's bending. So then you got to look at it, and you got to you kind of bend them back, so you kind of like you know, bend up just a little bit on one of the tines to kind of get it back into alignment. You know, so if you twist it and it kind of ends up like this, like the splaying looks really good, but it's up like this again, then you kind of like bend this one up a hair here and there until they're kind of back in alignment again, right with it. And if it feels good on the paper, you're in pretty good shape. So that can help with that. And now you specifically asked me about baby's bottom. I'm realizing now this is like the exact same dang question that I answered with Kevin, because I over talked through Kevin's one and kind of filled in Deb's. See, I'd done notes on yours, Deb, and then I ended up, you know, using a lot of that information in Kevin's from earlier, but that's okay. We can duplicate a little bit. Doesn't hurt to hear this multiple times, because this is a lot of like information, right? So the last, where was I even talking about? Let's see, baby's bottom. Okay, so baby's bottom happens when the nib is you know, properly aligned and everything. It's going to write really smooth. You want your ink to flow down your nib slit, and then it's going to come out of the bottom of your tip of your nib, right? Like, so this is the bottom, but your nib's not like perfectly pinched together like this. There's a little bit of a space there, and the way that it's ground is going to be a little bit of space down at the bottom like that. What baby's bottom is when you have too much ground away there at the bottom, and there's this big gap, big being very, very relative term here. There's too big of a gap at the bottom here. So the nib's going to write really smoothly, but what's going to happen is the ink's going to flow, and it's not really getting through that gap to get down to the actual paper. So it's only going to be when you tap it or when you write with a little more pressure that it's going to kind of start back up again. And usually once you get it flowing, it writes okay, because it's kind of coming down. But, and this is usually on like broader nibs that you end up with baby's bottom issues. But as you're writing with it, if you have issues with it starting up, or you pause for a minute and it skips and stuff like that, but it writes really smooth, and then when you write with more pressure it starts up again, that's usually a sign of baby's bottom. So what do you do to fix that? You can grind it down. Not grind, but you can kind of polish it down with Micromesh, and do like a little figure 8 pattern on the Micromesh, and that will kind of wear away the extra rounded parts and kind of, you know, get it back into more of the normal position that it's meant to be in. That will usually do the trick.